Let's cover ProRes Raw in Premiere Pro 2020. Since it's out of beta now, let's take a look at how it handles footage. I shot this footage on a Sony FS5 and recorded it on a Shogun Inferno. These are the results first. I'm going to be talking about how ProRes Raw, CDNG, and native S-Log2 within the camera over here in Premiere 2020. So the update is it's not bad. It's out of beta now. You can use ProRes Raw. It's a little bit buggy though. So let's take a quick look. First up, we'll make a sequence here, and we go into ProRes Raw 4K. It's like a new folder, and 25. Okay, we'll call it. Boom. Alright. So I've shot 3 different versions of the clips. They are ProRes Raw, CDNG, and native S-Log2 internal within the camera. And I've shot them exposed regularly, overexposed by 1 stop, and overexposed by 2 stops, and underexposed by 2 stops. So let's compare those. So the way it works is you just drag it in. Mute all that shit. Okay. And there's a little thing on the side here. If you click master, you can see a setting adjustment for ProRes Raw. It's kind of like a raw file, but the only thing you can adjust in Premiere is exposure. I think that might be the ProRes Raw codec. So yeah. And natively, it overexposes the footage. So when you bring it in, you have to bring down the exposure. Next up, we have CDNG, which is the true raw, like 12-bit file. Give it like 2 seconds. So as you can see, when you click on master, you have more adjustment settings because this is like the raw as you can get, like uncompressed raw. So you can adjust the temperature, the tint, and exposure. But the file size though is humongous, way bigger than ProRes Raw. So that's a huge disadvantage if you're running a little Shogun. And finally, we have the internal S-Log2. So as you can see, the internal 4K is not all the way 4096 by 2160, I believe. And just based off the codec, this is right off the camera. You can tell that ProRes Raw has a little bit of a saturation boost to it and some contrast. That might be the Shogun though. I might have to test it with the Odyssey and see how it goes. And the Raw is full on raw, CDNG and S-Log2 internal camera, pretty raw too. Only the ProRes Raw has a bit of color added to it. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead here and bring in the rest of the clips real quick. We have overexposed ProRes Raw, overexposed CDNG, and overexposed S-Log2. All of these were filmed in S-Log2, so yeah. And finally, underexposed ProRes Raw, underexposed CDNG, and underexposed S-Log2. Okay, cool. So let's look at the underexposed one first. It's the one that is most interesting. You can tell, but the amount of noise here, it's fucking loud. When you bring it back up to normal exposure, oof, look at that noise level though. This is raw, CDNG. I'll have to push it all the way up. And it's a little bit less noisy than the ProRes Raw, I reckon. And this is S.2. Let's go into the color panel. That's my scope. Alright. So you can see there's a little bit of noise level there. And here, this is with the DNG pushed all the way up, temperature wise, color wise. And oof, that is a big oof. ProRes Raw is not holding on too well. Yeah, that is not looking great. Also, I should note that there are two, if you use Premiere Lumetri, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. It's quick. There are two panels that show up. So one is the Lumetri color that's within the master, which is the ProRes Raw settings. And the other one is an effect here in the regular source settings. So you got to be sure, and make sure which one you're touching. You can see from here. Oh, ProRes Raw is not doing really well in bringing up the exposure. I would say that DNG is a little bit better. Tell the noise is not as prominent here, but still not amazing. Oof. The scale on the exposure for the ProRes Raw codec is a lot wider. You can go way dark and way brighter compared to CDNG. Okay. So now that we've seen some noise level shit, this is of course without noise reduction. I would say that the CDNG holds up the best in low light. No, actually I would say, oh, that's a tough one. That the internal S-Log 2 is pretty good with the internal noise reductions. Alright, next up, overexposure. This will be fun. So I've heard that ProRes Raw shines the best in fixing overexposed footage. So right now this is about many stops over. You can tell that the highlights over here and the sky a little bit blown out. But overall not bad. Bringing back some of the details here. And this is CDNG. So you can see it's very dulled tone, as in grayish. But it's pretty decent in bringing back the highlights here. Because this does not compare to a red or an Alexa. Oof. That is just not working out. What if I bring up the blacks? Everything looks too flat. Okay, finally, let's go back to regular. Just gonna drop the LUT on it. This is Joel's LUT. I'm sure you guys know which LUT that is. So you can see the color space is a little bit different based on what we recorded. It's from the ProRes Raw to the rest of the footage. Try and match all of them. See how close we can get. It's a little overexposed. Fascinating, eh? So it looks pretty freaking good. Let's talk about sharpness now. So ProRes Raw is okay. Everything looks pretty sharp. Now CDNG though, you can tell it's a little bit sharper for some reason. And S-Log 2 internal, it has, you can see a little bit of in-camera sharpening here. So obviously the S-Log 2 internal files, these are shot within the camera, are the smallest, and it's megabytes, bits. It's 4K UHD, but still freaking small. This is ProRes Raw, it's about 700 megs, and CDNG Raw is about 2.75 gigs for just a few seconds. about 3 gigs of footage for 5 seconds for CDNG, and you got about 700 megs or 5 seconds of ProRes Raw. So the file size is just way different. So back to the conclusion. ProRes Raw is for sure more malleable than the internal S-Log2, and highlights really helps, and you can fix those highlights really well. But in terms of low light, I think this depends on your camera, but doesn't shine that much better than CDNG Raw, Uncompressed Raw. So if I were shooting low light, I would probably just shoot like PP5 or not even S-Log2. So there you go, ProRes Raw, CDNG, S-Log2. Just shooting ProRes Raw gives you a little bit more dynamic range and color space to play around with. So moving forward, I would probably shoot ProRes Raw if I were doing outdoor stuff and studio controlled stuff. But if I was in a dark situation, I would not do it. And if it was underexposed, I would probably not even shoot any kind of RAW or S-Log for the FS5 at least. In terms of Premiere handling ProRes Raw, it's okay. It's better than the beta. There's a little bit of bugs here and there, but generally not too shabby at all. I can play full 4K ProRes Raw footage. Fine.